I have an interesting relationship with my enjoyment of Vocaloid music. Back then, I'd say I was a pretty avid Vocaloid fan. It kinda came as a part of my newfound interest in anime, manga, or anything that existed outside of the US at the time. At the time, I was definitely more into it for the characters than any of the music. Fun fact, my introduction to Vocaloid may have been through the Kids React video. If not, it was probably through Flipnote Studio, but that's another fun story to be told later. Anyway, as I got older, I kinda started to drift away from anime because it was considered cringe at the time, and in turn, I kinda forgot about Vocaloid for a long while. Now flash forward to the end of 2022, I'm about, I'd say, half a decade into making music, and I kinda just wanted to find more ways to experiment. One thing led to another, and eventually I had the idea to get into songwriting, but since my singing kinda sucked, I dropped the idea. Then, by some miracle, the clouds parted and blessed my YouTube algorithm with a Kasane Tedo cover of Tokyo Teddy Bear. I actually really liked the song back then, which kinda inspired me to go click on it, but the less said about the person who made that specific cover, the better, and now I'm a Synth V Tedo main. So now as a avid music fan, I just rediscovered Vocaloid again. But there's a bit of an issue. I wasn't really into the J-pop sound that surrounds Vocaloid. Sure, there are cool exceptions to the rule, and the music taste some Vocaloid listeners have surprised me. It isn't just anime openings, video game OSTs, and Calliope Mori. But to be fair, I think I'd be correct in the assumption that most Vocaloid fans are here for the wacky characters and not, for the music. While combining electronic and Vocaloid seems pretty seamless, the same can't really be said for rap. On the technical side of things, Vocaloid and other vocal synth programs can be used for rap, but, they likely weren't built for that in mind. I know I'm a bit deep into this intro, but to explain vocal synths and Vocaloid for those completely unfamiliar in the audience, vocal synths are primarily used as a stand-in for a singer. You write MIDI notes into a program, attach words to them, and they sing for you. The vocals used are taken from a voice bank, which pulls from numerous sound recordings of vowels, consonants, etc. And contrary to contemporary belief, they aren't generated with AI. Anyway, their primary use is to sing. They don't do too well with rap that doesn't include anything melodic. Basically, vocal synths, I'd say, could do a pretty solid Travis Scott impression or a Destroy Lonely impression, but when asked to actually rap, it sounds less like Eminem and more like Sugar Hill Gang,
Hip-hop! It started out in the park.
I'm not saying this isn't possible. Programs like SynthV have a proper rap function, and well, listen to the result.
Team to grip the arms of your seats. Attention, please, this rhythm will shake yo. Let's just bring this up, love up yourselves.
That shit is fucking trash!
Although I think the jankness of this is a result of poor tuning and writing, as well as most English vocal synths sounding somewhat awkward, it's not like other programs can do much better. Vocaloid songs or artists utilizing Western styles of rap, I feel, is an untapped goldmine of potentially great music. And thankfully, somebody actually saw that, and managed to pull it off pretty well. We're talking about Yameii Online. So I was initially introduced to Yameii through a couple of friends who found out I had an interest in electronic music and Vocaloid respectively. Shout out to my friends Carter and Brasco. Yameii Online is a collaborative side project of art designer, producer Oshan and rapper/producer Deco. The former had a history of providing visuals for artists such as Lil Uzi and Trippie Redd. Together, Oshan and Deco formed Oseansworld, or the Oseansworld Collective? Cinematic universe? Well, I say that because there's a whole web series for Oseansworld with some of the characters appearing on albums and having releases within the collective, such as Lil Hard Drive and Doom Doom, both of which are also aliases of Oshan and Deco. Here, Yameii Online is the main act of Oseansworld. Is this getting confusing? I'm definitely confused. But I compare the web series to Daft Punk's Discovery short film. It isn't really necessary to enjoy the music, but it's a nice visual that pairs with the music pretty well. But enough about aesthetics. Does the quality of that measure up to the music? Thankfully, this kind of music is right up my alley. The production split between Oshan and Deco carries most of my enjoyment of Yameei's music. Most of the production consists of distinctly simple, bright, and bouncy trap and house beats along with some drum and bass and hyperpop influences sprinkled in. The vocals here from Yameii are actually provided by the Vocaloid 3 engine using the Ivana voice bank. Since it's a somewhat early voice bank, the voice sounds robotic, and any original music coming from Ivana is kinda scarce. I mean, it's a third-party bank, so popularity isn't exactly gonna be through the roof. I kinda feel she's doing worse than some Utals actually. Anyway, for Vocaloid fans, the choppiness isn't really a problem since it's kind of part of the Vocaloid sound. However, for non-Vocaloid fans, this would likely be a turnoff if not used properly. Since it's kinda robotic, it might just push them into the uncanny valley. Since the production behind Yameii is centered around electronic-influenced beats, the choppiness of the vocals kinda ends up working in favor of the music. Also, I feel it's somewhat important to mention that Yameei's lyrics aren't exactly well written or necessarily deep. They just kind of exist for the sake of sounding catchy, and that's fine. All this combined creates this pretty unique sound relative to, what their contemporaries would be. So while the idea and sound of Yameii is fascinating, how well do the actual albums and songs fare? Fuck. So after listening to all the albums, there are several guiding traits that most of these songs and albums here have. This is the fact that most of the songs are relatively short, simple, and kind of built for low attention spans. Basically, it's TikTok music. You'd think that'd be perfect for me since I have a slightly better attention span than a goldfish, but this is the kind of music you really don't want to listen to back to back. It will drive you insane. So, in my opinion, there are a lot of high points and quite a bit of filler, so it's better to listen to most of the songs, add the best ones to a playlist, and just kind of leave the rest. You probably want to listen to these albums in very small doses. So when I listen to albums I want to review, I just put down notes to reference later. With the songs I especially like or have something interesting to say about, I have kind of longer notes. But for the most part, all I can really muster about some songs is song good. Song is kind of more boring than usual. Or literally nothing at all. So why don't we go over those albums?
It's a party then. It's a party then.
Cyberspace out of all the Yameii albums feels the most connected to the web series, meaning that the album is structured in a way that kind of follows a specific story with songs being split into multiple parts and spread throughout the entire album. In my opinion, those split songs would be much better if they were whole songs, but I digress. I don't think the concept of the album is super interesting, nor does it really affect the listening experience. That doesn't really mean the songs are bad either. Take Risks is literally a minute long, but arguably the best part of the album is a feature verse from Deco hitting a nasty ski mask for like 30 seconds and then the song just ends. A few other standouts are CyberKid 777, which has solid verses from Deco and Yameii, as well as the second part of Cyber Baby Angel. Neon Dreams has a cool D&B switch up, but it kind of drags on and Yameii doesn't really do much on there. The rest of the songs I'd say I generally like, with some others being forgetful and boring. For me, Cyberspace is on the cusp of being above average, but it just doesn't quite reach that mark. So it sits comfortably at being mid, like Vulture's one. So the Friday Night Basement albums are a series of small EPs that all kind of blend into each other sound-wise. To be honest, you can combine volumes 1, 1.5, and 2 into one singular experience. This time around, the EPs are structured less like concept albums and follow more of a traditional album structure. F&B 1 came out a little under half a year from Cyberspace, and the sounds introduced there didn't change too much. However, the songs there are a lot tighter with not much downtime in between. Not having the song split into multiple parts really helps the songs, although it's not like the songs were that long to begin with. Among my favorite songs here are Yameii vs. the World and Stargirl, which I feel are similar songs. Both have Yameii using some interesting flows over really catchy trap beats. The track Fire is also among my favorites since it's a bit more aggressive than the rest of the songs without sounding too jarring. I think this also marks the first appearance of Lil Hejai, who's another Vocaloid running the Cyber Songman voice bank. One last minor highlight is Party Den, which has a cool little D&B switch up in the middle. Other than that, I just kinda like it as much as the rest of the songs here. F&B 1 does its one sound consistently well, but the album itself isn't exactly too engaging. After Friday Night Basement Volume 1, a series of singles were released throughout 2021. This collection of 7 singles people call Friday Night Basement 1.5. From this lineup, the songs are kind of a mixed bag. The best track here I feel is Void, although I only really like it more since it has a interesting beat, a aggressive 808, and a cool vocal line. Another highlight is Baby My Phone, mostly for being the most popular Yameii song. The song is perfectly fine and did really well on social media, but it's not any more interesting than other Yameii songs. At least for the first half. Oh, here you would expect me to say, oh, it gets better in the second half, but no, the second half of the song is literally the first part played at half speed. I don't know why this is there, it just drags out the track, but I guess you aren't exactly supposed to listen to the music for more than, say, 2 to 3 minutes at a time. I have this thing on vinyl for some ungodly reason, and the song is on both sides, so... Christmas Island also kinda does the same shtick, but it just isn't as interesting. You know, since we're still on the topic of singles, although these songs weren't included in this collection, I'd like to shout out these 3 singles for being better than most of 1.5. Fervor and Floozy have a lot more going on production-wise, leaning more into electronic than any previous song at that point, although Fervor is more in line with hyperpop, with Floozy being a bit more trap-oriented. So anyway, Friday Night Basement 2. Oseansworld had about 2 years to cook. Is it any better than the first? Well, to start off, the songs are a bit more varied this time around. Oh Well is a cool drum and bass / trap hybrid song, and the track Portal has a unique swing groove to it. My favorite track Pure is kind of a combination of both, where it has D&B drums and a swing groove. The first half is a upbeat trap song, and then it transitions into a interesting little triplet drum and bass track. But what else do I really say about this album? The other songs here aren't mid, and I'm relatively engaged, but for the most part, all I can muster is just saying that they're pretty good. I'd absolutely listen to this over French Montana. Alright, next album, Candy. Is it good? Yes. Is it passing 6 out of 10 good? No. But it's getting there. The mixing and production are obviously better, and wait, I actually have more to say. There are emojis in the track list. Alright, fine. There are actually a lot more tracks that I think are more than just generally enjoyable. Loading has the distinction of having both Yameii being tuned lower than usual, which is refreshing to hear, and having Deco on the track, which is honestly a godsend, considering I've just been mainly listening to solo Yameii songs. The best song on the album, in my opinion, Please, also has Deco, and is just a fast hodgepodge of trap, hyperpop, with some drum and bass elements. It has this crazy nightcore vibe since both Yameii and Deco sound like they just downed a tank of helium. There are more interesting deviations, with Back to Me being a full house cut and Bitter Ends having a slower 80s kinda indie synth vibe. Fuck, I don't know how to describe it, but it sounds like this kind of song.
She got a broken soul.
Yeah, that kind of song. I'd also like to mention that the incorporation of different genres sounds a lot better here than on previous projects. Prior to this, I feel that some of it was just a bit forced at points. Like they're just there to break the monotony, then they just go back to being monotonous. There's hints of it sounding a lot more natural in the previous album, but here it's definitely a lot more coherent. Finally, the last interesting tracks for me are Yummy Dummy and Short Plus Sweet, which are simpler but still pretty interesting trap cuts in the vein of Yameii vs. the World. The ratio of songs I would come back to this time is better than the ones I kinda like, so good job Yameii. And finally, we reached 2024 with Odyssey 1, which is a full-on collab album with Yameii and Deco. Guess what? Yameii has broken the threshold of having a legitimately good album in my opinion. You know what, actually, you know what? It's a great album. Having Deco on every track really helps keep the album consistently interesting to listen to. There are a few cool parts in some songs where Yameii and Deco go back and forth and just play with song structure more. The production, like last time, is an improvement. This time around, we've moved past the minimal production that kinda mired the old albums, and now they sound a lot fuller, and fewer tracks don't just stick mainly to a trap sound. Like I mentioned before, the genre fusions sounded good in Candy, and they sound even better in Odyssey 1. XXX is by far my favorite house cut from Yameii and a top tier song from her in general. The more normal, trap leaning cuts like Hyperphonics, Stinkbug 7, Joyboy 99, and Rain are helped from being just good to being great by just having just a touch of electronic incorporated. Just a step above that are the tracks Rocket Town, Scattered Thoughts, and Ambush, leading more into hyperpop with a mix of harsh synths and hard 808s contrasted with the poppier melodies, making them a lot more interesting to listen to. My favorite one out of those is definitely Ambush though, with the synths sounding more like guitars than like an actual synth. This is the one Yameii album I'd actually recommend listening to front to back, although I can't help but think that Deco somewhat carries this album. But regardless, if you wanted to listen to a Yameii album, this is the one to listen to. And that's all the relevant Yameii albums. I'm not covering New Radio because that's categorized as a Deco solo project, but it plays out more like a Oseansworld collective album. Here's my favorite tracks from there. I don't feel like replaying it because it's like 1 hour. Overall, I think the concept, sound, and aesthetic of Yameii and Oseansworld make it interesting to listen to. Like I said before, I'd advise anyone actually wanting to get into Yameii not to listen to the projects back to back. I got sick of it pretty quickly, and the novelty of Yameii kinda just wore off in the face of more decent tracks. Is Yameii Online the best Vocaloid rapper? Yes, with an asterisk. I say that because Oseansworld in general, to my knowledge, is the best collective to pull off this new Western trap sound with Vocaloid. I hope there are more producers who are inspired to tackle this kind of sound and do it just as good, if not better than Yameii. They got a cool niche, some solid singles, a great album, and a whole lot of filler. This is something I feel fans of electronic rap and traditional Vocaloid music could get into. In fact, I feel this is a pretty good gateway for Vocaloid fans to get into trap as a whole, because God knows they probably need that. But that's just all my opinion, and I don't have much left to give, so I guess I'll take my leave.